Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob, and welcome to the NFL Dream. Now we're going to travel to Kansas City and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we do, everyone on the video, like the video right now, subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, and it helps us know that you enjoy this NFL content, as we are 20 days away. We're on the precipice of starting the NFL season. Why don't you come and join us? We will break it down all season long. So let's begin with this Chiefs free agency class, I guess is the best way I can describe it. They re-signed Nick Bolt, 3-year deal, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed. He was easily probably the highest rated free agent at the linebacker position, but probably on the defensive side as well. He was that good, and he is that good. Like, when you have a player who is a tackle machine, he's pretty good in coverage, and he can do these things, and he fits what Spagnuolo likes to do, that's a well-rounded player. That really benefits the player. So they re-signed him. They re-signed Marquise Hollywood-Brown to a 1-year deal. Didn't do a whole lot last year, was coming off a really bad injury to his shoulder he suffered in the preseason game, and it was just really tough when he came back. You could tell he was looking for his groove, and he just never quite found it. They re-signed Kareem Hunt, 1-year deal, $2.5 million. They re-signed long snapper James Winchester. They also re-signed their punter, Matt Ariza, Mike Pennell, their defensive tackle. Charles Omenihu re-signed a 1-year deal worth $7 million. And Juju Smith-Schuster re-signed for a 1-year deal. So the reason I isolated the Charles Omenihu deal was because the rest were just vet guaranteed money. That's all it is. The vet minimums are almost always just direct guaranteed contract. Omenihu was a free agent, but the defensive end class was so deep in free agency, he was just glossed over. You saw the same thing with Dante Fowler. You're seeing the same thing with some other players who are still available that would be a number 2, maybe even number 3 edge for many teams. There was so much of a deep class that it didn't matter. And a deep free agent class, deep draft class as well. Some other signings were Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle. They lost some defensive tackles, bringing him back was a big move on their part. Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback, is now in Kansas City, former Raider. So it benefits, and you have a guy with starters experience. So you knock on wood that your quarterback doesn't go down. But if you do, you want someone who has been in that role, been there, done that, figure that all out as we go. Elijah Mitchell, the running back, signed a 1-year deal worth $3.5 million. The thing with Elijah Mitchell is when he's been on the field, he's been pretty good. He's just not been on the field consistently. Injuries, not high on the depth chart, not getting a lot of touches. It's hard to give someone that. Because if I remember correctly, you have to go back to 2021 to find Elijah Mitchell stuff. 21 and 2022, I believe. That's a long time ago in sports years. So we got to be aware of that. Jalen Moore, the offensive tackle, signed a 2-year deal, $30 million, $21 million guaranteed. Look, they were trying to build this offensive lineup. We'll get into it when we get to the draft picks, but you can see what they were trying to do. Christian Fulton signed a 2-year contract worth $20 million. You hope Spags can fix him, because there's a lot of games where he looked good today, and then there's games of, he was not good. He was a complete fail this week. He just didn't play very well. Mike Edwards also reunites with the team on a 1-year deal, as he went to Tampa Bay last year, reunited with them. Now he's back. Now looking at the draft picks, Josh Simmons was their first round selection. The offensive tackle of Ohio State, coming off the patella tendon rupture a year really quickly, because I don't think anyone could hold his water and what he was capable of doing. Just, it wasn't good enough. And I'm not saying he's the best answer, but he is the answer for the time being. We'll get into the other moves that they made on this offensive line momentarily. That was in the first round. Second round was Omar Norman Lott, the defensive tackle out of Tennessee. In the third round, I'm going to butcher this last name. I apologize. Ashton, I think it's Gelati, but it might be Gelati. The edge rusher from Louisville, Noel Williams, the cornerback out of California. That was also in the third round. Jalen Royals in the fourth round. We'll talk about him more near the end of the video. Jeffrey Bassa, I believe is how it's pronounced. The linebacker from Oregon is in the fifth round. They didn't have a sixth round pick. The seventh round pick was Rashad Smith, the running back from SMU. So you can tell they went offense. They tried to even it out, but they went offense. So there's moves they made that we will talk about again closer to the end of the video. Let's talk about the players that they lost in free agency, though. So I know this doesn't really count, but it's not listed here, and I want to mention it. They traded Joe Thuney away to the Bears. That's a big move, because Joe Thuney played left tackle for them, because the best way I can describe it is they had no one to play left tackle. They tried Kingsley Sumatea. They drafted him. He was a second round pick. Didn't go well. He's raw, and it's going to take him a long time to mold him, because he's just such a raw talent. He's if I remember correctly, I think he's the first cousin of Penei Sewell. So that was the hype about him. But he was a young player and very raw. They tried another left tackle. It didn't work. So they both got benched. They tried another left tackle. It didn't work. They put Joe Thuney out there. They signed DJ Humphries, who had tore his ACL on Christmas Day. He didn't play well. He came back for Christmas Day the next year and because that injury is very hard to come back from. Even though it was a year to the day, you can't always say the medical will look great. It's always about how is the player going to look. And the player didn't look good on that day. And that was against Pittsburgh, who can't move the ball on offense. And they just decided, you know what, we're going to go and move Joe Thuney fine and slide in a backup left guard, which didn't work. Didn't do enough of what they were trying to accomplish, and you saw that in the Super Bowl. They just well Mahomes' life. That put too much stress on the offensive line to try and make that work. And there was games that you saw it, that offensive line was a liability. That even though the Chiefs would pull out the game in the end, you were concerned about that offensive line by many, many measures. So that's why they drafted Josh Simmons. But there's a lot of pieces that they lost too. They lost Josh Uche. He went to the Eagles. They lost Derek Nottie, who went to the Jets. Nottie, I don't think people mention Derek Nottie that much. But he is a name that when they needed a stop, that's the guy, him and Mike Pennell, that's the two guys that make those plays for them that are under the radar guys, but they make plays. He's with the Jets now. Another defensive tackle, Trayshawn, I think it's pronounced Tershawn, but it's Tershawn, Tershawn Wharton signed with the Panthers. Cincinnati re-signed Samaje Perine, who had been with the Chiefs for the last few years. And Justin Watson signed with the Texans. We will talk about that wide receiver position momentarily. But I want to get into the standings and the schedule before we do. The Chiefs' record last year was 15-2. It was not a pretty 15-2, though. It was not a team that we're going to beat you by 14 or 20 or anything like that. It was one-score games, a lot of them. And they weren't very good in those games, but Mahomes would make something happen, and the offense would score or kick a game-winning field goal, and that's how they won. Because it was so good. When you have a team that is so one side of the ball dependent, but can win, okay. Now, looking at the schedule, I want you to keep in mind the first 6 weeks. Just keep that in the back of your head, 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks, that's what I want you to keep in the back. Okay? The first game, the Chargers are at home. September 5, that's the game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Chargers are at home. ESPN has it listed as versus, but it's at Chargers, but it's in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Which I'm going to amend what I said before on this show, which is any game should be put on YouTube for free. I'm going to amend that a little bit. Every international game should be free and put on YouTube. That's what should be. You're going to do the Sunday ticket stuff, I understand. But put the international games on YouTube for free. Now, week 2, home for Philadelphia. Then the first road game is at the Giants. Week 4 is home for Baltimore. I don't understand why the Giants are an 8 o'clock game, by the way. Why is that game on NBC? It makes no sense. If you're going to do an NBC game, do Baltimore. Don't get it. I don't understand it. Week 5, they're at Jacksonville and that heat. So keep that in mind. Even though it's a Monday night, it's going to be hot. Then they're home for Detroit. So keep that stretch of games in your head. Then they're at week 7, home for the Raiders. Home for Washington on a Monday. At Buffalo. Then their bye week is week 10. Okay. It's good. Coming back on the bye week, they're at Denver. Home for Indianapolis. Thanksgiving Day, they're playing the Cowboys. That game is going to destroy records of viewership. Right now, I saw it today, the current viewership for a Thanksgiving game is 44 million for a game, and that was between the Giants and the Cowboys in 2022. This game between the Chiefs and Cowboys is going to shatter records on Thanksgiving. I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at 50 million plus viewers. I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. Then at home for Houston, that's a Sunday night game. Home for the Chargers. At Tennessee. And on Christmas, because there's 3 games on Christmas this year. 2 games on Netflix, 1 game on Prime Video. The Prime Video game being the Chiefs are home against the Denver Broncos. That's at 8:15. And then they finish off the year at the Raiders. Looking at the schedule, and the reason I said keep the 6 games in your head in the beginning of this is because of Xavier Worthy. Worthy is expected to get suspended. Now, I would think it's 6 games because it was 2 incidents in a very short period of time. Because I can't tell you what the first incident was, but it was caught on camera that he attacked a person at a nightclub in Texas, in Dallas, where he's from, last offseason. And they let the justice system, the NFL they let the justice system work their way through and are expected to suspend him. Everyone pretty much expects it to be 6 weeks because it's multiple incidents. That's why I'm saying it could be 6 weeks. Which, if so, that's a rough thing. Because charges in Brazil Ravens in week 4. But you go Chargers in Brazil, home for Philadelphia, week 2. Home for Baltimore, and then home for Detroit. Those are 3 teams. The reason I labeled those 3 teams, those are the teams that were in the playoffs. You're going to lose that team if you don't have Xavier Worthy on the field. That's a concern of mine. So, him not being there is a big problem. And I think we just talked about the offensive line and how I think that was a mess. My second biggest issue with them is this wide receiving core. If they lose Xavier Worthy for 6 weeks, first of all, you gotta have to hope he comes back in shape, because you don't know. Because he won't be in football shape, but he'll be hopefully in good physical shape. Then you're concerned. Now we have all these wide receiver issues. The tallest guy we got is Juju Smith-Schuster. Because Rashid Rice, he's coming back from an injury. We're going to ask him to just bounce back into his role, which that's a big jump for him. Same thing with Hollywood Brown. You hope he can continue on this trajectory with Mahomes. That's what I'm trying to say. And then you have Jalen Royals, who's a rookie who you would ask to be your third wide receiver outside of Juju. So this is your top 4 team. And then you got Travis, who's coming off a really down year, which he claims, he was acting and that was what took him away. No. You're old, dude, and you're losing it. That's what's happening. You're losing it a little bit. That's okay. It happens to every player in the NFL. You're going to lose it a little bit. But can you make it look marginal? Every year, can you make it look marginal? He's got to showcase that he still has it. Because if he was anything like last year, that's not good. He didn't look good. You don't get better as you get older. Not anyway. Not in my mind. If you're not playing quarterback, you don't get better as you get older. You just don't. You physically get worse, so you have to find ways to make it look less worse, if that makes sense. So I'm concerned about this wide receiving core. I don't think they did enough. I wouldn't be surprised if they go and sign somebody. But they need to. They need some wide receiver juice. Let's see what happens. But my record for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2025 would be 13-4. Because I do think they're going to drop 2 games. I think you can make it up in the latter of the season because it's not as difficult. But I think not having Worthy there for the Charger game, the Eagle game, the Raven game, and or the Lion game is going to be tough. Buffalo, I get, but I think if you don't have him there, those games are going to be rough to play. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Ebert.